Good evening. Welcome to the September 20th, 2016 meeting of the Town of Manchester Planning and Zoning Commission. First item on tonight's agenda is the approval of the June 21st, 2016 minutes.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as submitted.
Second that.
Okay, motion on the floor has been seconded to approve the minutes as written. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Reports. Michelle, Board of Zoning Appeals, case 295.
We had a case, 295, I believe that was in June. I don't know that. It was on Whitman Court. It was a request for a variance of the rear yard from 25 feet to 10 feet. The woman had already had a existing non-permitted deck and enclosure that got ruined with the snow last year, and when she went to rebuild it, found out that she needed to have a complete BZA case. So that was passed. She was granted based on her exceptions that she backs up to stormwater management plan. She really wasn't affecting anyone else. That's the only case I've had since then. And I'm going to tell you still.
Okay. Steve?
Just a few items. Of course, commission members, we gave you a quick tour of our new facilities tonight. As I mentioned, it looks like our ribbon cutting ceremony will be Sunday, October the 30th. If everything goes okay, we'll be able to open that Monday the 31st. That'll be scheduled probably in the afternoon. It is a bye week for the Ravens, so it was scheduled around that. But a couple items of importance that I brought to the council's attention last week. The stormwater management facility on Route 27 and the retrofit for the Michelle Road facility is moving right ahead. 27 project will be getting first. We haven't secured the entire funding for the Michelle Road project, but at the end of the day, we're going to be getting all that dirt. We'll be able to receive enough dirt out of those two jobs that we will be able to create a practice field behind the existing football field at Christian Street Park. So that whole area to the rear, we can use as a dump site, will be completely filled in, and that will be an additional practice field. So now we have to look ahead on some additional parking in that area. The other item that I brought to their attention, SHA is working on two projects. The widening of Route 27 at Westminster Street, which is creating an issue for the town, because when they widen Route 27 in our area, it's going to put our route main 15 feet. So we're battling state highways on who's going to pay for the relocation. I say it's your project, that's got to be part of your job, you pay. They're saying that the town does not own this land, it's on state right away, so you have to pay. So that's going to be a battle. So the other project, as far as intersection of 30 and 27, that's at a standstill right now. We haven't heard anything about that. That's some items real quick.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wild, would you like to add anything for the council?
No, no unusual business that day. Just a reminder that Steve said ribbon cutting on October 30th, and hopefully we'll open on Monday, right thereafter.
Very good, thank you. Good evening, Ms. Moser, how are you?
Good evening, I'm good, how about yourself?
We have no complaints yet. What news do you bring us from the county?
I really don't have anything to report tonight.
Wow. Okay. I guess I'll have to have like a 10-minute pause for that. Thank you, appreciate
We'll take a
that.
recess.
Thank you. Okay, includes item number 3. Item 4, S15-0001 amended Western Abbey final.
Michelle, just for the record, when this matter initially came before the board, I recused myself from any comments, and that still carries forward.
How are you, Mr. Mario?
Good, thank you. The project is probably well known to all the board members. We've come back again for the final approval. I think we've addressed all the comments from the previous session. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into tonight. I don't want to take up time recovering things that we've already talked about. Would you like a full briefing on it, or do you where enough of it.
Sure, why don't you go ahead? It's been a little bit, I think, for
Okay.
some of us. Just go ahead and refresh
So
us,
what we
please.
originally had was we had an approved site plan for 12 single-family styled homes that were age-restricted. Due to market conditions, we've changed it to 19 townhouse units that are very similar to what's being constructed at Castle Field off of Burt Fowler Road. And I think probably most of you have been by those units. I think they're turning out very nicely, and there's a pretty good market demand for them. So we want to move or change the product from the single-family home style to the townhouse. That required us to come back and amend the site plan. The stormwater management stayed essentially the same because it has the same amount of imperviousness. The sewer line and the water line were probably the things that we've moved the most since the site plan was originally approved. And I noticed that Michelle had put up the water line. So originally what we had for the single families was we were driving it through and across using the existing right-of-way. Because of the location of the townhouses and also the retaining walls, we are going to route the 8-inch water line around the outside of the property. The sewer line was originally headed to the, what's the name of the road there? Park Ridge. However, we found out during our investigations that the sewer line wasn't complete to the very end of the terminal manhole because of rock in that area. So what we did was we've turned the sewer line to come out to Southwestern. Those are probably the biggest changes that we've evolved in the last cycle of comments. That's.
So previously you had issues with the water line and the segmental block retaining wall. Has that been resolved to the town's satisfaction at this point with the reroute?
Yes, they completely rerouted that water line.
Yes.
This is not going through the,
And
public works people are happy with that.
previously there was a wall on that eastern terminus that's been worked out that we can get by there without impact.
Correct.
And where do you stand with acquisition of easements to route that around the edge of the property?
Well, we can be on our property.
You're on your property, okay.
And, right, and then there's an existing easement on this that's platted.
Yes, that's correct.
And I had met with Mr. Knott to go over the sequencing, and I think he was pretty comfortable with how we were approaching the construction out there. There's some issues with when we tie in to make sure that we don't isolate any homes while that the tie-in's occurring.
Refresh my memory again. I know we talked in my notes here about the black, excuse me, the black iron rail fence on the retaining wall.
Yes,
That's gonna meet
that's
the
going to be installed. My recollection was that we were going to be 42 inches, I believe, on the height of the wrought iron.
48.
48. Was it larger? I'm just going, 48, okay,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay.
I know that we changed it to higher than what building code required.
Okay. And the water line around the east side will be a standard town water line whereby adjoining property owners could access that line in the future should it be necessary.
That's correct. It's a completely public water line. What we have is, as we come down to this point here, the one connection point between the retaining walls, we have our water meter vault, and then these are all private lines coming out, but this is a public, the entire blue highlighted area is public.
I don't think these folks are very happy.
And be standard backflow preventers to protect the town system.
Internally, yes. And also, within the fire meter vault.
That was, that's where I was going next, thank you. Okay. town have any outstanding concerns?
Well, I didn't hear anything about the hydraulic model.
We have struggled with trying to get Mr. Hoffler to respond. You know, I've tried to involve you a little bit so that you are aware, but last week he called me and said, apologized for not returning or responding for the last, well, we've been talking to him for about 90 days now, and he said he would get to it quickly. If he has any changes to it, I can't imagine, I mean, we have an 8-inch water line. If he has any changes, at the most it would be is to change the diameter to 10-inch, which is something that we would be willing to do post-approval if that model change required it.
Yeah, the only thing I could see if it showed up, you know, if something out of blue showed up in the hydraulic model, it would, and Rich, you know this, it would be the bends.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and we can easily overcome the bends. I mean, that's.
So what we would intend to do is instead of having a single 45-degree bend, we'll put in a series of long sweeps so that, that the pipe is more of a curve than it is a direct bend, and that'll reduce the friction losses. And what the model would predict for us is how much friction loss we would change by eliminating this piece with a piece that does that. So, you know, we're adding a couple hundred feet of water line to that connection.
Anything else from the commission members?
I make motion to approve the plan as submitted before us, and as stated by representation of the applicant. Any changes to the water model is your responsibility based upon the outcome.
Okay, have a motion on the floor.
Second that.
Second, okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, Michelle, just please read that back, just to make sure the motion, that you were supposed to have written down while Bob was saying it.
All right, so Bob Greer made a motion to approve the plan as submitted and state any changes to the water line would be the developer's responsibility.
He said Rich's.
Rich's responsibility.
I heard that.
Correct.
Okay. Motion on the floor has been made, seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So approved.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The only thing I would like is
Okay. Item number 5, S16-0001, number 1 North Liquor Final. It's not the one I want. Here we go.
Good evening, Dan Staley with DRS. I'm hoping you have a package of approval letters from county agencies that we can go over.
No, they did not. I did not photocopy it all because I think the agencies have been met and they all work, so I didn't even bother. I thought you had enough paper to.
So I'm done.
I think there was one.
There was,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
had
there's
some.
there's a whole bunch of,
I did it anyway.
Yeah, I think you did it anyway.
Oh, I might have done it when I sent the packets to you, but I didn't do it again, I just sent you the final.
okay.
But I did, compare them to all the issues that he was responsible for, and we have to receive it all. With the few concerns that I left out here, that I gave you just a single page, this is the only one that had some comments and concerns that were not completely approved. We needed to decide.
Okay.
If I could, all agency comments were revised and agency approvals, and the only concern out of any of the agencies would be development review, engineering, and Bobby Moser. And the concern would be for the sidewalk that runs along Wood Alley. And if I'll take you back when we were here the last time, we asked to have parking spaces reduced from 9 by 20 to 9 by 18, consistent with the city of Westminster. You agreed to that. And the parking spaces along Wood Alley, they're actually, the paved portion is 9 by 16, anticipating that 2 foot of the car is gonna pull in, hit the curb in the front and overhang the walk area. The walk, the curb line from the on-site curb to the Wood Alley curb is 5 feet, face of curb to face of curb. The concern is that, you pull in with your double cab, full-size pickup with a trailer hitch in the back, and you back in rather than pull in, you're gonna block a large portion of that walkway. Other than that situation, the walk should be adequate to get from Long Lane to Main Street. So that was raised, and then also Bobby's concern was that she feels that we need to have handicap ramp at Long Alley, or Wood Alley and Long Lane. That, I'm gonna leave that up to the commission. We don't object to it. We didn't see a need for it. We didn't add it to the plan. But if you feel that there is a need for that, we can certainly add that to the plan. Other than that,
On both buildings or the main liquor store? The apartment building has handicap on Woodside, right?
No, you're talking a street handicap ramp, correct?
right, that
Yeah.
you would find in like your curb.
He's
Oh,
talking
on the
about
curb
the curb
radius.
ramps
Yeah,
right here.
okay.
I'll take you back, years ago, when you put curbs in, you put ramps in.
Yeah.
And then you got away from that practice, and then you put ramps in where you needed the ramps. So rather than trying to anticipate what was gonna happen in the future, you only did what you knew needed to be done today. So when we looked at Long Lane and Wood Alley, of course, there's no pedestrian access along Long Lane except for in Long Lane itself. So we did not provide that. Again, if it's something the commission feels strongly about, I'd be more than glad to add it to the plan. And then that would provide handicap access from Long Lane up on our sidewalk and all the way to Main Street. And of course, you get to Main Street and Wood Alley, there's a handicap ramp there that'll allow you to move up and down Main Street.
Yeah, in one of the, this is a handicap ramp. The bottom left portion's a handicap ramp. That landing. So this entire sidewalk behind the building, it's all curb. There's no ramp.
Are you talking about the walk that adjoins the building, at the rear of the building? Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Yes.
The sidewalk is at paving grade, so you can access, there's no grade difference there.
Flush condition.
Yeah, the sidewalk is flush with the parking lot grade, so you can access any place along the back of the
Okay.
building.
So technically, you would go in Long Lane and just go right through the parking lot, right up onto the.
Yes, that is
concrete.
correct.
So it does come up, it comes up to a curb, I guess, on the L tip, along Wood Alley is elevated to the corner.
Right, what happens is, when you come off Main Street, of course, we're hooking to a curb line at Main and Wood Alley, and then all along Wood Alley is an 8-inch curb, and then that wraps around onto Long Lane and back into our parking lot, and then down to the walk that parallels the rear of the building. And then from the, I guess would be the northeast corner of the building, where the curb line hits that sidewalk, of course, it's a 8-inch difference there. Then by the time you get to the end of the parking space, we transition back down to the parking lot grade. Then from the end of the parking space that's on the north bay, from there all the way across the back of the building is all sidewalk and parking lot grade are the same grade.
So these 8 spots are the short ones on Wood Alley side?
Yes.
Yes, they're the ones that are, they're, again, from the rear of the parking space to the curb line is 16 feet, anticipating 2 feet of overhang onto that walk area to make the 18-foot space.
But the backup distance between the parking spots is up to code.
That is 24-foot wide,
Right.
which
And
is.
that's there.
No, your code's 20, your code's
Which
from the 90s, and the 24 comes from, I think Carroll County right now has 24-foot wide aisles. So because of downsizing cars, things just got a little bit smaller, environmental concerns, less paving, that sort of thing, so.
Which is.
And of course, the driving motivation for me was, it made it fit from the north property line to the south property line. That was the motivation, to try to get as much parking there as we could, and still having, a lot that functioned and people can get in and get out.
And remind me again, deliveries, how are they gonna operate?
If you look on sheet 6, there are along Main Street, there's going to be placed signs in front of the store that say no parking, I think it's Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays between 10 and 12. So all deliveries will be curbside along Main Street. Other than that, those spaces will be available for parked cars. So there will not be any delivery trucks to the rear of the building. And again, that was a concern. I think
Trash
it's-
service will be off of Long Lane, they won't actually enter the site, correct?
Right, the way the trash service, we remember this last time, so the way the trash service works is there's an enclosure there, which is going to be a masonry wall. We're hoping to get some greenery on that wall. If you look, the dumpsters are tucked in behind the enclosure, so that you can't see the dumpsters from the street no matter how you look at it, no gates.
Right.
And then the garbage people have to pull up the long lane, the dumpsters will be on rollers, have to roll it out into the alley to dump it into the truck and then put it back in the enclosure.
That's nice.
With the two 24-foot drive aisles, I'm not overly concerned with the 16-foot spaces. I would actually, I'm concerned about the bumper overhang. I'm not concerned with the total space that's allowed. I would actually consider reducing the two drive aisles each down to 22-foot. Giving yourselves an extra 4 foot, so those would be full spaces and still give us a buffer on that side for the overhang.
I was looking down, you're referring then to the example he gave where a pickup truck with a bumper hitch backs up, now it's hanging over the sidewalk.
Right, so we'd have the extra buffer on the wood lane
Right, so we
side.
wouldn't be impacting that sidewalk on.
Right, it'd be less likely to impact it.
Yeah.
I think it would be a good idea too to add that ADA sidewalk ramp, just at that back end of Wood and Long.
I'd like to see that. Have to work out the clearance with the stop sign that's there,
Yeah.
but I think they probably could do that. I'm not opposed to that.
Okay, very good.
Not that there's a connection for it to go to right now, but possibly in the future, and we don't want to have to come onto their property to have someone else do it, so.
Right.
The sidewalk that's proposed along Wood Lane would be open to the general public at all times,
Yes.
and would an easement be granted for such?
That's, again, that would be up to the commission.
It's not currently proposed.
It's not part of the plan currently.
Okay.
You adverse to reducing the drive aisles to 22 feet, pick up that 4 feet?
I'll follow the commission's direction, but I would caution you, though, the other extreme of what I just described with the double cab pickup truck, the trailer hitch in the back, you're gonna have someone pull in their Corvette, they can't mount that curb, so rather than pull into the front wheels hits the curb, they're gonna pull in. So if you pull that curb line back and reduce your drive aisle, you might have that guy sticking his rear end out into the drive aisle. So again, it's all about balance. and
It's a balance.
Right,
It is,
exactly. So,
I'm
and-
looking for a little bit more protection for those spots, so.
And the
well, I can tell you,
sidewalk
when
might be a good
when you design, you can accomplish about 90% of what you want to do
Yep.
reasonably well and usually cost effectively. To get that last percent 10% is the gold plated part. So it's that 1% of that guy in that pickup truck, I don't know if, doesn't get me concerned, but again, I'll follow the
So
commission's.
what's the high curb on those 8 is, on Long Lane, you said like 4 inches and it's sloping back to 0?
No.
This curb you're talking about, the Corvette hitting.
Okay, along Wood Alley, it's an 8-inch curve. When you turn on the Long Lane, it's an 8-inch curve. And then when you turn in on our site,
Yeah.
we go from an 8 to a 6. And again, the idea is there that more cars can mount that 6 than an 8-inch curve. So we have 6 on site.
So this is all 8 on
But
the
what I was-
outside, and then it's
It's
coming
8,
back down to
it's
6
6,
here.
it's 0.
Does it grade back here?
Probably make your transition across the inlet that's there.
Well, again,
Zero.
the inlet needs to be 6 inches to get the open throat in there. But once you hit I'm gonna call it the northwest corner of that parking space that's against the store. From there going south, when you get to the end of that parking space, you're gonna go from 6 inches high to 0. So when you get to the back of the parking space, then the sidewalk along the store
Yeah.
and the parking lot is the same grade. And that's so, again, and you see this all the time in all the new sheet stores, a lot of the convenience stores now, where you don't have to step up in that curb to get into the store, you just walk right in.
So is the parking lot flat or graded?
It's graded, sloped.
It's sloped.
Sloped to the north.
Well, the county's already signed off on like the sidewalk widths and all that kind of stuff? Or that?
Well, again, the 3 agencies, which is Bureau of Development Review, Engineering, and Planning, all made a recommendation. Again, planning said, the handicap ramp at Long Lane.
Right.
And then the other 2 agencies cautioned you on the overhang onto that sidewalk. And again, we have 5 feet from face of curb to face of curb. And again, most cars are gonna overhang 2 feet, so you got a 3-foot clear to walk up and down the sidewalk. But if you'd like to change that, again, I think we'll accommodate that. And if I could maybe change subject for here, the architectural plans are now complete, ready for submit for building permit. And I can report to you that the owners have chosen to use hardy board for the exterior of the buildings. And all the trim boards will be AZAC or another trim board. It's, again, rot-free, bug-free, holds paint. So the building that we described to you earlier on in the process looks like the building that's going to be built. They both should be very attractive buildings for this part of Manchester.
Okay.
I was very, very happy to see that they stuck to their guns, and so.
Good.
One of the concerns with only being 5 foot face of curb to face of curb is technically ADA doesn't count the curb tops. So you really only have 3 foot, 4 inches plus or minus.
Right, that'd be correct.
Which really is not an ADA route to begin with. And then when we start talking about overhang, further impeding it, you basically have a non-functioning sidewalk at that point in time. So we're kind of caught in between trying to address pedestrian mobility and trying to meet the functionality coming down through here.
Well, of course, there's 2 lanes to access the parking bays.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest? Maybe take a half a foot out of each one, a foot out of each one?
I'm suggesting that we narrow the interior drive lanes slightly in order to get you up to 18 feet there. You can take it out of 1, you can take 2 out of 2.
Okay, but what you really want to accomplish is take that curb line, the interior curb line, and pull it in on the site so that you increase that sidewalk area.
I'm saying you could take that curb line, and we know full well that this is not a fully functioning ADA sidewalk. It's not an intended ADA route, it's a convenience route.
Correct, I agree with you.
So if we keep that curb line where it is, and we work with the dimensions you have, we increase that north bay to 18, so we gotta find 2 feet somewhere in either the north drive aisle or the south drive aisle. You can take a foot out of each one of them. You can
Okay.
take 2 out of one of them.
You're suggesting to leave the curb line where it is so the
Where
car
the
doesn't
curb
have to overhang?
Right.
So you're gonna leave
Just
that
add
up to,
2 feet
so you're gonna leave it up to
spaces.
the driver whether he wants to point and hit the curb line or
Right.
whether he does not want to.
He gets a full space at 18
Okay.
feet.
Well, again, that's
And-
easier for me for plan work, so if that's what you choose to do there, that's,
Curb stops, we were talking about?
We could add curb stops if it becomes a hazard. We put curb stops at 16,
Sure,
but that's gonna,
well, I would suggest to you, if you're gonna add curb stops, I'd sooner move the curb. Because then there just comes to plow snow, it's just,
Yeah.
there's just another obstacle they gotta, and they get beat up, and
they do.
they're laid over, they're cracked.
They're not my favorite things.
Right, so if that's what you really want, I would just suggest pulling that curb line in, that 2 feet,
Okay.
and widen the walk area out and
Okay.
reducing the 2 drive lanes by 24 to 23. If that's what it, if that's what we
22,
are.
22, 22, because right now you got 24s on your drive aisles.
Well, that gives you 4 feet then up, and then you can
Yeah.
move that curb line then. So now you're talking about 9 feet curb to curb. Is that what
Okay,
we,
we can do that. We got 6, make that 18. Okay,
Does it need 4 feet or just 2 feet?
yeah, we're only trying to gain 2 feet, are we not?
yeah.
If the drive aisles went to 23,
Sorry.
if the drive aisles went to 23, we ought to be able to affect it.
Drive aisles could be 23 or drive aisles could be 22, whichever way. I mean, it's still within an acceptable standard by ITE, so. Okay.
So extend the spaces to 18 and make the drive aisles 23.
Could you repeat that?
Extend
Very
those
good.
spaces on the north end to 18 feet and make each drive aisle 23 feet instead of 24.
Good compromise.
And that gives you, that should alleviate the non-functioning sidewalk issue.
Mhm. I agree with that. And I'm leaning towards not putting the handicap access on that sidewalk. Because it's not really legal, or it's not really, I agree with Bob, and it's not really wide enough to start with.
Just widen it by 2 feet.
We just widened it by 2 feet.
Oh, he's gonna pull the whole curb out. Okay. Okay,
This curve is gonna come this way.
then I take that back.
Any further discussion? Questions?
I have one more thing I did not see in the plan, Tweed, if I've seen the plans. You have nothing stated in here about your repairs and to the long lane when you do your taps.
To make it easy, if this is approved, our Public Works has to get in touch with whoever your mechanical contractor will be, because this is going to take some coordination, as far as making hot taps, wet taps, and then repairing, the areas once they're excavated and put
Okay.
back. One thing I did see, Dan, double check, you may not need a 2-inch water line.
Well, we went to a, to a sprinkling contractor. You gave me, you gave me a good guess on what you thought pressures were in the lines here in town.
Right.
The sprinkling contractor we went to had done a job like the month before within, I don't know, 2 or 3 blocks of here.
Right.
And the number he had was, I think you gave me 70, 80, he said 72.
Okay.
So he didn't do any real design work, but he said to be safe, his best guess was to use.
Two.
Well, no, we're up to a 4-inch line right now.
Oh, I was looking at the residential.
Oh,
part.
okay, the resident,
Yeah,
yes.
that's,
Well, what'll happen is, when we go for building permit, he's gonna come in and do a flow test, and then
Gotcha.
from that, he'll tell us what size lines we're gonna,
that's fine.
how we
Just
need to.
make sure, yeah, whoever your mechanical is gonna be, to get in touch with us. As Michelle stated, you know, we're gonna be opening up a section of Long Lane that's
Right.
going to have to be repaired and
Right.
replaced, so that's, we can work that out.
Okay,
Anything else for discussion? Entertain a motion from the floor.
Say Henry, you know what you want to say about the parking garage. I could try it, but you'll have to correct me.
Make motion to approve the plan, conditioned upon modifying the parking lot to provide for the 18-foot space along the north line, with a goal to achieve an unobstructed sidewalk. Applicant is to add public access easement along that sidewalk between Maryland Route 30 and Long Lane.
To add what?
Public access
Public access easement.
on the sidewalk.
You go with me after I make a motion, so you're on your own.
Thanks.
Bob, are you gonna add anything about the handicap accessibility?
There you go.
Modify my motion to include provision to provide a handicap access easement at the corner of Wood and Long Lane. Thank you for reminding me of that.
I can second that.
If that pen holds out.
All right, motion to approve number one north plan, conditional upon modified parking to provide the 18-foot space along the north line with the goal to achieve unrestricted access. Applicants to add public access easement on sidewalk from Long Lane to Route 30 and also include handicap access along Long Lane.
Yep,
Very
second.
good. Okay. We have a motion, seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, but I have one question. Should we have our attorney prepare a deed of easement for that traveling public easement along Wood Alley and submit it with the Public Works? Does that work?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'd also like to commend you for showing care in your architecture,
Yeah.
and I look forward to seeing it completed in that state.
Well, it was an enjoyable project. I worked for some good clients, so yeah, I look forward the same. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like it.
Gonna start a fad.
There you
Building trend.
Okay, item 6, P 140056, Carroll Estates preliminary.
I got two sets of these. I don't know, is it the thinner one? I'm going with the thinner one.
Perfect, let us send them refold these things.
When's yours dated? I don't know, I got yours.
June 26th.
Good evening, Marty Hackett with CLSI out of Westminster, here on behalf of Doug Harrell. We're here tonight, I think, to verify a couple items. One thing is make sure Planning Commission squared away with some of the planning comments, and I'll get into a little history. And that's why I have several sheets of drawings here that I'll display. The other thing is that the pump station. The pump station, originally, we had one set as more of a manhole package station. Steve, that's not what he wants to maintain, and we went ahead and made the adjustment. We're gonna have that down near the stormwater management pond, and that's gonna be a package station still, but it's gonna be with a fiberglass housing on it and stuff like that. So they'll be more enclosed and all. If I may, I guess I better take this. No. The concept plan. We originally came in front of you with this concept plan that had, I think it was 14, 15 lots on it. And there was concern about these specimen trees and so on. At the last planning commission meeting where I presented a concept plan, we went ahead and we proposed 18 lots, and we actually did a conventional plan that proves the 18 lot count. And what we did was the commission allowed us to cluster, which pulled everything off so we could preserve those specimen trees in the back. The stormwater management facility is still in the same location. And when we got approval of that concept plan, which is the one that was here, when we submitted the preliminary plan, we've addressed most of the agency's comments, but Ms. Moser still had some questions and still is recommending this connection to Southwest Avenue that will be extended in the future. If you recall, we were in front, and Mr. Hill's here as well, and I represent them both, Mr. Harrell and Mr. Hill. But we were here in front of them, you guys, probably about, how many months ago? 3 months ago, and we presented I know it's in here somewhere. Yes. We presented a plan that was, one, trying to preserve some of the integrity of the Southwest Avenue, if you remember that meeting. And we came up with, and the main thing was, we stayed away from this area because of the slopes involved and what was, that interconnection was gonna create, earthwork-wise and everything to the topography. And I guess my point is, the big thing is that the concept plan that you approved did not make that connection. And I did a preliminary plan and went through the whole design process. And since there's some recommendations still, it's still requesting that. Michelle and Steve wanted me to come back in here to make sure that the planning commission is still in agreement with that. Is that a fair statement? I looked at profiles on the design of that roadway connection. And basically, I was looking at almost 13% grades, which normally a maximum road grade's around 10, and I have it shown here. And then when I go with the 10% grade, you can see I have about 25 to 30 foot cuts, and that's why we were here. Mr. Harrell, when it comes down to grading his lots, it sinks this roadway down, which means there's these hills that are in the backs of these lots that are, I mean, the hills are as high as that. A two-story house is roughly 30 feet or 30 couple feet to peak. So the hills at the back of the house would be almost the same height, all down. And that's why we stayed away from, on Mr. Hill's property, the design of those lots in here, because we could create a lot nicer lots, plus create the Southwest Avenue. So we're here to reaffirm that because I got a preliminary plan comment letter from Ms. Moser requesting it, so that's why we're here on that regard. The other thing was, she did question, and I think I addressed it. We went from the 15 lots to 18 lots because we went ahead and asked for the cluster subdivision and we created the 18 lots and pulled them all up on the road. That's where, that answers the question on how it became 18 lots, addressing, I think it was your comment number 1 letter. Letter dated August 17th, 2016.
I think I was talking about, the common open space area and the possibility of providing some amenities on that.
Yeah, well, the main goal, well, as we talked with.
That was a forest conservation area.
Correct.
That was the main goal of that area.
It was to preserve the,
Plus, the original plan that they had, they were showing grading on lots that, grading that was on slopes in excess of 20%, and I wanted them off those slopes. So they went ahead and did the cluster to not only retain almost all the specimen trees, I think we're losing one in the stormwater, and that's fine. But they retained almost a vast majority of the forest that was on that property back there. And my comment and concern, I wasn't at that meeting, but I sent some written comments. My concern is you had all this unforested land, what's the reason to go in there and knock the trees down on slopes that are 15 to 25% when we can do the subdivision out of the forest? And Mr. Hackett accommodated us on that. And that was the primary purpose, was an environmental preservation area on steep slopes.
the other, on comment number 3, we showed the sidewalks as, they're 5-foot wide sidewalks, but we can accommodate it on one side in this location, but not on the other. And basically, the sidewalks are going to nowhere at this point in time. And that's what was approved, again, by the planning commission as we discussed it at that meeting. I know, Mr. Wood, you weren't there. But the preliminary plan was, it basically submitted identical to the approved concept plan that was occurred at that time. And I forget the month, it was a couple months ago as well. And then the fourth comment would be the preliminary landscape plan doesn't show any trees proposed for the residential lots, and she's requesting for some street trees. Well, the Carroll County Landscape Ordinance under the subdivision doesn't require any street tree plantings. And actually, it doesn't even require 1 tree per lot. Most of the builders, when they build the homes, are gonna have their own landscape packages on that. I mean, so that's where we are. It was the 4 comments, and I think the biggest comment is the road connectivity. So I'm really here tonight to reaffirm that it's not, so we can proceed on a preliminary plan and hopefully come back next month for approval. I can tell you that I took a little, maybe I went about looking at just different areas. I mean, there's one connection in this location, and there's about 74 homes. There's one connection in this location, and it looks like a whole section's not constructed yet, but you can see the road's built. And, I mean, there looks like it's gonna be well over 50, 60 homes in there. Years ago, when they talked about trying to, they tried to do interconnection roads and wanted grid systems and neo-traditional designs, and there's this guy coming in, Randall Arndt, he's selling all this stuff. It doesn't happen all the time, because you gotta worry about, it's not a one-dimensional item. We're looking at 3D. We got grades and all that are concerned, and we take those into consideration. It's not a traffic safety issue. I mean, the intersection will function fine, whether there's additional 18 lots functioning or not on the Park Avenue and so on. So that's what I'm here to ask for a confirmation of. And I think, as I stated, the pump station, we're working with CU on that, so we gotta come through the final design and everything else, so we'll be back in front of everybody, so. I'm here to answer any questions.
So say it again, the grades that came off of the cul-de-sac into Mr. Hill's property, could you go through that again, please?
Sure.
Yeah, I think he said it would be 13%.
I mean, so you're really exceeding the maximum street grade of about 3.5%. And that keeps it up, and that's still, the cuts in this location here, which is on Mr. Hill's property, they're still about 25 feet. If we lower it, it goes to 30, 35 feet, if we increase it and meet the design criteria. So, again, we think, there's still means, there's places all over the county, and I just showed you just in this little area of examples of, I mean, we have Lake Forest down off of 32, it's got 58 units on a cul-de-sac, you know, and, you know, it's all over the place. So that's what we're here to, and here, it's just something that, for one, the other thing is, the design of this community, it looks like it stays with the topography as I showed on the previous plan. This road's built with the benefit of no lots. I mean, for one, I'm sure Mr. Harrell, we're looking at his site right now, he's not gonna wanna pay for it. And I know Mr. Hill already told me he's not interested in paying for it. So, I mean, it's just, it's a huge expense because of the cuts on the road and then everything else associated with it. And this is the stuff, though, that I addressed at the previous meeting, that's why I came in with a design that had the cul-de-sac here.
Were there any other questions at this time from town staff?
No, I think that's all we really discussed when we met with them at the end of August. And it was that and the pump station, which we're happy
Right.
that they moved that, so, yes.
I don't think in discussions about connecting the two, I don't think there was any consideration taken into the depth or the cuts that would be needed for the road. Well, good intent was there, just probably no real definitive grading facts were available at the time, so.
I mean, I'll tell you, the request for an evaluation of connectivity was mine. And it's because we do have far too many places where we have 30, 28, 58 units off of one connection point, which has a variety of concerns. I greatly appreciate the fact that you have studied it, and with the expanded topography that we're seeing here, clearly it's not a road that would meet the intent of what we're looking for. It would not be a winter access road that steep. You're not going to get decent houses on it at that rate. It's just,
No.
it was worth studying. I'll leave it at that. That's a question. I'm thankful that they studied it.
Yeah,
and-
yeah, I mean, the grades are what the grades are. I mean, it's a steep hill you're trying to come down, and it's a lot of cut.
I think the only thing I still had outstanding was, and I'm gonna lean towards our fearless leader here for this, was fire truck access. Do we still feel comfortable with some of these dual driveways and pulling in, you know, this house sits way back here by itself. Once you pull in rescue vehicle to number 6, you're not getting out of number 6. In other words, if you bring, what's the response now, 5 vehicles?
Well, you're just gonna be, you're gonna pull in and that's gonna be it.
Right, so,
Hopefully somebody will lay out going down the lane, you'll have a source pumper, you'll also have an attack pumper right at the end, you won't be able to get much else in there. Unless we wanna start putting some nice ruts in the front yard or
right,
in the side, but it is what it is.
but we can get the normal trucks in.
Absolutely.
It looks like it's plenty wide and accessible.
Absolutely. It'll be a parade going down the lane.
Talking about 6, I'm trying to get my bearings on 7. Yeah.
7 has a totally different access, right?
Got it, I
7's
got it,
coming-
got it.
7's not even a house, is it?
That's a,
7's existing.
7's existing.
Seven's
Right.
existing, yeah.
Okay,
Got it.
but it doesn't even access this part, it comes in from somewhere else.
Comes off the crown.
Comes off of Crown Circle.
Okay.
truck in behind it, but, yeah, plenty of those kind of lanes.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else for discussion?
So I guess he's looking for a recommendation that we're still adhering to the concept plan, and from everything I'm hearing here, we are.
Yeah, because it's from that point that I can finalize my preliminary plan. I got, basically, I have
Right.
stormwater management comments, and most of the approvals I have, and then I have the guidance then to go forward, then I can bring it back to you for final preliminary plan approval.
That's fine.
So I guess what you're looking for, the fact is that what you have there with the cul-de-sac ending is where we're headed, and with the changes in the pump station, the other comments, you're on the right track.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
And what was the precluding fact, or reason, I mean, I remember the discussion about only having one sidewalk out to Hilltop. What was the restricting factor on the north side of the roadway?
I believe when we talked about it, Mr. Harrell owns this, so we can put the easement on to allow for it to come out. The piece that's on this side over here, there's
Were there some trees we were trying to miss in there? Thought there was some object we were trying to miss in there.
Yeah, there was something.
Hydrant, wasn't there a hydrant?
Maybe a hydrant. I don't know.
Is that the one with the tree, the big tree and the hydrant on it?
in order to make it work, we had to tie in the grades before we got out of on this side of the road.
Okay.
We had room to work it because he was willing to put an easement on his own property, if you will.
Right.
On this side, we had to tie in the grades from the curb line back, and it's actually on a slope off the back of the curb. So, and then, and I believe what we talked about was that everybody was satisfied on getting there, because there's no sidewalk anywhere else located on
Right.
Hilltop.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I think you got what you need, or you actually asking for a,
One that stated?
No, I think that if we can just reflect in the minutes that everybody reaffirmed,
Right.
that I'd appreciate that, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
I agree.
So as far as the master stated, that it was discussed with our cul-de-sac and the inability for future connection.
Mhm.
And now we're also in agreement for sidewalk on one side, or just on, did I miss something?
Sidewalks on both sides, until the in-fee strip that comes down from Hilltop, and then from, the corner of, Mr. Harrell's existing property, it's gonna extend out on the south side, but not on the north side, it'll be
Right.
on one side.
Both sides internal to the subdivision, but just one side on the access strip out.
That's correct.
How big is that right away through there? Isn't it 40 feet anyway, so why do we have to not,
50-foot
50,
right of
it's
way.
a 50-foot right of way.
okay, so why do we not have room for sidewalk on both sides?
The grades are different on one side than they are on the other. So what happens is, if we put the sidewalk in, the sidewalk's gotta be a certain, take over 2% as far as the cross street. So from there, I have room to break back down to the right of way line.
Right, but you will have an internal.
Oh, yes.
Internal, you end at a stop point,
That's
which is
correct.
right there.
Perhaps the preliminary plan will provide the additional details and example why it can't be
I can do that too.
done.
I told you
Yeah,
I
that's
wasn't
no problem.
listening. All right.
all right, very good,
Thank you very much. for your
thank
time.
you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, any other business before the board? Yes, sir, Mr. Hill.
You have another work session scheduled for the,
I don't
I
think
don't
we
think
have an
we've set a
official
final
date.
date on that yet, have
We talked about it, we didn't set a
We
date.
didn't
That
set
is
a date
correct,
yet.
yeah. I don't remember a firm date.
we? Yeah,
No, the next one I assume would be sometime, we don't have to date on it. Well, probably in November.
probably in November.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Because
We'll
I
let
knew
you,
that-
Mr. Hill, we'll let you know.
No. The answer's not to be determined. All right, very good. Motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn at 8:30.
Make a motion and I'll second it.
Very good. All those in favor? Aye. Good night.